Ladies and gentlemen, your favorite white colonizer, Tall the Traveling Clad, back here from Israel. We're taking a clip from Michael Knowles today. We're taking a look at it.
Hello. Thank you for coming, Michael. So, conservatives are against the ideology of political correctness and social justice, which is the ideology that says that white people should hate their culture and that Asians and whites should be treated worse than blacks and Hispanics. So that same ideology said it was okay for Zionists to throw Palestinians off their homeland and deny Palestinians the right to live in their homeland.
I don't know if it was the same ideology. It was the ideology of Zionism, is what you're saying.
It's the ideology.
Which is different than political correctness.
That's the reason why the whole world supported it. They condemned apartheid South Africa because it was white people doing it, but they don't condemn it when it's Jews doing it because they're considered more oppressed.
Everybody condemns Israel. What are you talking about? We're like the only country in the world that doesn't condemn Israel.
We give them more money than any other country in the world.
We do, but I'm saying
yes,
most countries, including in the West.
Other countries do too, but we sanction apartheid South Africa because it's white people doing it.
The Jews are pretty white. I mean, some of them are a little dusky, but some are pretty white. So, what is your question? Are you saying that Zionism
Jews are not white. Absolutely not white.
is the same thing as political correctness?
Yes, I believe that conservatives shouldn't support Israel because it's the
I know
same
what you
ideology.
believe. I'm trying to figure out what your question is.
Because it's the same ideology as political correctness that says that white people should hate their culture and that white people and Asians should be treated worse. It's denying an indigenous population the right to live in their homeland. Imagine if people took it a step further and said that Native Americans and black people should throw white people out of their homeland because of political correctness.
Wait, hold on. At first you said that Zionism denies the indigenous people the right to their homeland.
Because of the Holocaust.
But in the first thing you said, the Palestinian Arabs would be the indigenous people who now have the right to throw the occupying Jews out of what is the Palestinian Arabs' homeland.
I support a state.
Hold on one second. I'm trying to make some sense of what you're saying. I'm trying to just make some sense of the things you're saying. Because then the second part, you said, imagine if the Lakota Sioux, say, tried to throw the white Americans out of America because it was their indigenous homeland. But that is the argument you're advocating, actually, right? By opposing Zionism on indigenous grounds, that's the same argument.
What I'm saying is that people can do different things based on how oppressed they are. If white people did what the Jews did in 1948, they would be condemned by a long shot.
You're saying if white people went into some land that they hadn't been in a long time?
If white people went to a country and threw out a population, they would be
We've done that, haven't we?
That was.
I mean, we try to be nice to the people, but that's happened. Wars of conquest happen.
1948 was different than the 1600s.
How so?
Well, 1600s it was okay to conquer other countries.
Oh, get the fuck out of here! Get the hell out of here! Are you kidding me? That's the argument you're gonna make, Rakesh? Are you kidding me? And I can say that because everybody thinks I'm Indian. Are you shitting me right now? That's the argument you're going to make?
What changed about practical morality?
In the 1940s, there was the UN. It made clear that
By the way, poor girl in the microphone. Shout out. Shout out to the girl in the microphone. She looks so uncomfortable.
Other countries were not acceptable.
But how did that change the moral law? Just because the UN said so? So if I say so, can I change the moral law?
The only reason that people supported Israel was because of the Holocaust.
Okay, you keep speaking quickly and changing all the topics and interrupting me.
My ideology
I'm trying to
is
figure
consistent.
I'm trying to figure out what you're asking, because a lot of people have questions about Zionism and Israel. That was what our whole speech was about holy war, not just with the Jews and the Muslims, but with Christians as well. What's the question?
My question is, as a conservative that believes that all people should be judged equally, why do you support Israel and condemn? And why do you support Israel when you're against political correctness and social justice?
Well, because I don't see why I shouldn't, as a practical matter, support Israel. You bring up the notion of Zionism, and Zionism has a religious aspect and a historical aspect. The historical aspect is exactly the kind of argument you're making about the Native American Indians, that because the Jews lived in this land a long time ago, they have a right to it now. But I don't really buy indigenous arguments. I don't buy it for the Lakota Sioux. I don't really buy it for anybody. However, I pointed out in my speech, if you were in favor of the Palestinian Arabs having a state, you probably wouldn't want to make the indigenous arguments because Palestinian Arabs are not indigenous to the land by any stretch. They invaded in the 7th century and conquered many lands that were actually controlled by Christians. So that I don't think that argument works. Then there's a religious argument to Zionism.
I got to pause Michael Knowles real quick. I don't get me wrong. I like Michael Knowles. I'm going to be a little bit harsh because I think, look, I'm pulling on my sleeves. I think some of the things he's saying kind of correct, but he's got his shit a little fucked up here. It's a little mixed up. The Palestinians, the Arabs conquered Palestine, okay? Conquered Judea in the 7th century. They colonized it and Arabized it. They did that for most of the Middle East and North Africa. The difference is that Palestinians themselves are not colonizers, they are colonized. But they are colonized in their identity, and then therefore they continue their colonization on other people like me, like the Jews of this land who predated their existence or predated their cultural existence. The reality is when you go to a Saudi or an Emirati or an Omani or anybody between the Hijaz or the Halij, the Arabs of the Gulf, the true Arabs, the only real Arabs really, the ones who have that pure Arab DNA. And you ask them if a Palestinian is a real Arab, they will tell you, hell no. That's not a real Arab, that's a fake Arab. And then you ask a Palestinian if a Somali is a real Arab, and they'll be like, hell no. He's African, he's black, he's not a real Arab. I'm not joking. These aren't my thoughts, by the way. I see an Ethiopian Jew as much of a Jew as I am, even more so sometimes. It's because I have a special place in my heart for the Ethiopian Jewish community. Everybody knows this. And that's how a lot of Jews are. Because we don't look at the race and the skin color thing as a situation. We don't see that as as any less Jewish. You're a Jew is a Jew is a Jew. I'm not saying it's perfect, and we have racism amongst us, but overall, we don't deny another person's Jewishness based on where they came from. Because they all had to go through the same shit as a Jew. They were all persecuted wherever they went. The difference here with what Michael Knowles is getting wrong, okay, is that a Somali will live and die as a Muslim Arab, believing that they're a Muslim Arab, and the Palestinian they'll deny their Arabness and their Muslimness because of their geographical location. And then a Saudi will look at the Palestinian who's denying the Somali and say, he's not a real Arab because he's from Palestine. That's not even an Arab land. But it's technically all Arab land because we conquered it. You understand? This is what happens when you colonize land. So in reality, Michael Knowles, I believe that Palestinians have as much of a right to live here that I do. I want to live with them. I don't want to live with their identity. I don't want to live with their culture as the supremacist culture in charge. I believe Arabs have a place here. I like the idea of living around Arab culture. I'm happy for it. I don't want to live under it. That's the difference. The whole region shall not be Arab, is my stance. Because it doesn't help anybody. When you colonize 400 million people and their identities and your culture, it's not going to work out for anybody. And it's not working out for anybody. That's just something I wanted to add in here, a little caveat. Back to the clip.
Which says that the Jews have a right from God to this land. And as a Christian, one's view of what is meant by Israel and what is meant by the Holy Land and the fulfillment of the Old Law and all the rest of it would impel a Christian not to totally agree with that point of view. So I'm not saying that I agree in principle with either of those arguments. But as a practical matter, it just seems to me that the state of Israel is doing pretty good stuff with the land. And so what I really care about from the perspective of the Holy Land is that the holy sites are protected, that Christians are permitted to go on pilgrimage there. And when I look at the alternative, which is a bunch of Palestinian Arabs who elected Hamas, and I look at the history of Christian-Muslim relations, which has basically been a 1,400-year unimpeded story of Muslims trying to invade all of Western Christendom and desecrate our churches and abuse our relics and so on and so forth, then I'm not really inclined to create yet another particularly radical Muslim nation, particularly with authority over the holy sites. So you can...
Damn, Michael. Listen, your history on Mizrahi Jewry may not be 100%, and you may have just called all Jews kind of white like me. So you may be ignorant about a few things, but goddamn boy, was that good. Damn, King Cook.
Call it Zionism. I wouldn't call it Zionism. Just call it a kind of practical and prudential support for the state of Israel, given the alternative. And then you make this claim that political correctness is identical with Zionism. I mean, it just isn't. I don't know what to say. Zionism is a philosophy that came out of
It's literally antithetical. They're not one and the same. Political correctness runs from Zionism as fast as it can.
19th century that made all these claims about the Jews' rights to the Holy Land. Political correctness is a liberal ideology that emerges in the 20th century, which we now call wokeness or whatever, which has all sorts of influences from the Western Marxist tradition to the, the deconstructionists and the post-structuralists and all sorts of kind of postmodern academic theories. And it's nasty and silly and wrong, but I don't really see the connection between the two things, and just as a practical matter, I'm yet to be convinced that handing over the Holy Sepulchre to a bunch of fanatical Islamists would be a good idea. I don't think it was a good idea in the 11th century or the 12th century or the 13th century, and I don't think that it's a good idea in the 21st.
A really, really solid answer from Michael Knowles there towards the end. His rationale for not handing Muslims over control of Israel, godsend. Great. Everything else, not so good. But that, great. Great ideology. There is no moral argument to be made to creating another 23rd Arab state in the Middle East that will serve the purposes of Arab supremacy, Arab ethnocentric viewpoints, and serve only the purposes of an Arab Islamic society. If you're Muslim, you will prosper there. If you're anything else, you will not. There's no moral or ethical justification to creating it, and that's my final thoughts. I appreciate you guys for watching and supporting my channel, and I'll see you in the next one. I love you a long time. Goodbye, Clats.